Thank you for listening to episode 37 of the Career Planning Show. Our guest today is Ryan Law, who is passionate about bringing people together to make our cities better. Ryan works on creating positive change for the public good through collaboration and creativity. As co founder of Urban Minds, he works to bridge the gap between youth and decision makers in both large scale projects and grassroots youth led initiatives. He specializes in developing youth engagement strategies and events for municipalities and community partners. He is also a senior public consultation coordinator at the City of Toronto. Working with project managers and consultants, he leads the public consultation process for cycling and pedestrian projects, transportation master plans, and environmental assessments for transportation infrastructure. Ryan's previous roles include planning and policy advisor for Councillor Shelley Carroll and project coordinator at 880 Cities. Ryan Law has extensive community engagement experience in planning policy, urban development, placemaking, and transportation. Learn more about Ryan Law at ryanlaw.ca and connect with him on LinkedIn or send him an email at ryanlaw@urbanminds.co. Enjoy the interview. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Career Planning Show. Our guest today is Ryan Lowe. How are you, Ryan?
I'm great, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Ryan, let's take a step back and think a little bit about your career journey so far. Would you mind walking us through what it's been like from your undergrad up until today?
Sure. So, I I actually started my undergrad at former Ryerson University, which is now Toronto Metropolitan University, in architecture. That was something that I was really interested in growing up as a kid. I've always doodled, drew buildings and cities and cars and everything, and that was something that I thought I had a lot of interest in. And as I was applying to universities, architecture was very much the top choice for me, and so I was quite happy to be able to go into architecture in first year of my undergrad. But very quickly, I realized that I didn't have the passion that I thought I had, and having gone through my high school years very focused on math and the sciences, I felt quite unprepared for the artistic side of architecture. And so I quickly was very burnt out from architecture school, and that was really first semester. And I told my parents, I was talking to my friends, and I came to the conclusion that it wasn't actually for me. I struggled with that decision a lot, but eventually I decided that I needed to change programs, I needed to change schools. I was also living downtown for the first time on my own. It was just not, it was a very huge jump from what I was used to how it was then. So I quickly did the paperwork to apply to another program. Initially, I thought I wanted to go into urban planning because that was sort of the closest field uh, that related to architecture. But I was looking at the Waterloo program. It was a co-op program. It's a 5-year program, as some of you might know. Um, and I didn't want to do a 6-year undergrad program, like 6 years of undergrad. That just seemed like a very long time. With 6 years, someone else could come out with a master's degree. And so that's why I decided that I would choose another program that would allow me to graduate within the 4 years and then pursue urban planning and my master's. So that's what I did. I ended up transferring to Waterloo for the geography and environmental management program. And the program was actually quite flexible in a way that I studied a lot of planning related courses through my electives, but also a lot of geography courses, especially human geography courses, were quite interesting to me as well. And so I actually quite liked the program, despite that wasn't really my first choice, you know, throughout, but it allowed me the flexibility to study things that I liked. And fast forward to my master's, I went to McGill for their master's of urban planning degree. And I would say those 2 years I spent in Montreal was probably the most fun and really formative years of my academic career, if I could call it that. Um, it was quite refreshing to see a group of people, my cohort, my classmates, so dedicated and interested and passionate about cities, about urban planning, and definitely helped that we were in Montreal, such a fun, diverse, vibrant city to be in. And it was sort of our playground for a lot of the projects and assignments that we did. So those 2 years, I had a lot of fun and I learned a great deal. Um, and when I graduated, I knew I wanted to come back home to Toronto. And so I applied to different jobs and I landed at a nonprofit called 880 Cities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and why is it called 880 Cities, you might ask? The idea is that if a city is great for an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old, then it's great for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of the indicator species, if you will, to help us understand how we could make cities more inclusive and more livable. And so there, I really, again, learned a lot through the projects that I did, a lot of community engagement work, a lot of uh, public spaces and placemaking projects, as well as some transportation projects as well. Um, and after that, I made the jump to the public sector. Actually, initially in the political sphere, I was working for a city councillor in Toronto as the planning and policy advisor. And so I was looking at a lot of housing development applications and reviewing those applications with my boss, the counselor, as well as any planning, urban planning related policies and programs that are in place or being, discussed and voted on in council. And on top of that, I was also talking to a lot of residents, answering their questions and sometimes complaints about development, about zoning, bylaws, things like that. So it's a very wide range from the very micro level of fences and trees to the very large scale macro level of housing policy for the city of Toronto. And I worked there for another 2.5 years. And now, currently, I'm working in the public consultation unit at the City of Toronto. And my work has been very much focused on transportation projects. So I do a lot of consultation work for bike lane projects, for transportation master plans, um, organizing meetings and surveys and project websites to make sure that we're hearing from residents and stakeholders on these different infrastructure projects. So that's where I am right now.
Okay, that's really awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Mhm.
It's definitely very interesting. So if you were to describe your role as senior public consultation coordinator at the City of Toronto
Mhm.
in a few sentences, how how would you say that you decide what to focus on in terms of the priorities that you have each day, and what are some of the outcomes that you've been able to have an impact on over the last few years since you've joined the City of Toronto?
Yeah, so as you know, the city and really cities around the world, and especially here in Toronto, there is definitely an increase in demand for what we call active transportation. So
Mhm.
that means walking, uh, rollerblading, or using a mobility device like a wheelchair, like cycling, and like taking transit. So these are all different types of what we call active transportation. And in Toronto, a lot of the infrastructure that we have is quite car centric.
Mhm.
So it's very much designed for drivers driving their private vehicles. And so there is a push to really make our infrastructure safer and more accessible for people who don't drive, who use other modes of transportation. And so I see my work or my role to be important in the sense that we're trying to help residents understand the nature of these different projects, what is involved, what are the changes, what do they mean to them. So as a homeowner or as a resident, what does that look like for you on the streets that you use? Um, and of course, to people who walk or bike, how will that make them safer? And of course, with these projects, because there's limited space and limited resources, there's often trade-offs. And so again, my role through these surveys and meetings and conversations is to help people understand what those trade-offs are. How do we strike that balance? And of course, when we are making recommendations to city council, then the council members will be able to take what was heard from the public, from the community, and help them arrive at a decision that they will then vote on.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you going into so much depth, revealing some of the focus that you have in your day-to-day job. Now,
Mhm.
one of the things that you're also involved with, which is a passion project of yours, is this organization called Urban Minds, and you really focus on youth engagement around urban planning and other related issues that are important for municipalities, for different civic partners that the cities engage with. And I had the privilege of speaking at one of your recent events, which I appreciate the opportunity to do. How would you describe Urban Minds and the kind of initiatives that you currently have in place?
Yeah, so thank you for asking. And Urban Minds is definitely a passion project. I like to call it as my 5 to 9 job. Working in the
Yeah.
city's 9 to 5, and I'm doing the rest, on the weeknights and weekends for Urban Minds. I co-founded Urban Minds about 6 years ago, and it's based on this idea that we're not doing enough to educate and engage young people about city building. Um, I realized that, in high school, we don't learn a whole lot about how cities are planned or designed or built. It's only until you get to maybe the post-secondary level, if you are studying in related fields, that you get to learn all of those things. But somehow we all expect, or at least the society expects, that when you turn 18, you suddenly know how to vote, who to vote for, how everything works within the city. Um, and that is not the case. And so I co-founded Urban Minds, with the mission to really think about meaningful ways to engage young people, to help them participate in creating equitable and sustainable cities. Some of the work that we've been doing include the One Up Youth City Builders program. So that's a year-round program where we mentor high school students to learn more about city building through conferences, workshops, and other programs. We specifically have a school chapter program where we mentor these essentially school clubs where high school students work on a community project. They brainstorm and develop an idea, build a prototype to serve a specific need in their neighborhood. So it could be things like traffic safety or even things like mental health in their school, and using a space within their school or within their neighborhood to address that challenge. And that's one, I guess, the big program that we run, which is the One Up program. And outside of that, we also do consulting work with municipalities and other civic organizations. And we look to inject youth engagement opportunities in their larger scale projects. So, for example, we were working with the city of Markham for one of their secondary plan projects. If you are familiar with Markham, there's this area called downtown Markham or Markham Center. And there's a secondary plan, which is a study to look at how to better plan for the land uses and transportation in that area. And so what we did was that we organized a youth idea jam. So we had young people participate virtually because of COVID to share their ideas of what they like to see in this area in the future, because that is going to be their downtown as residents of Markham. And so, yeah, those are the kinds of work that we do with municipalities. And lastly, we also run workshops for schools and also for companies. It goes both ways. We talk to young people about how cities are built, and then we talk to professionals about how to talk to young people about city
Mm-hmm.
building. So
Mm-hmm.
we're being kind of the bridge, the relationship builder between these two groups of people.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Notice you using the phrase city building, and
Mhm,
another phrase that I see Urban Minds use is urban change making.
mhm.
Would you say that those terms are interrelated, or there's a difference between them and how they're used? And further to that, why should the listeners consider getting involved in leading change in their own communities?
That's a great question. So city building, I'm sure many people have many different kinds of definitions for that term. I see it really as a collective exercise that different players and actors in cities and towns do to continue to grow and develop the city. Um, City building, I like to see it as a positive, net effect to the built environment that we live in. Um, but of course, there are large players and actors like governments and developers that do city building work, and very important that they do that. But then there are also the more grassroots level work that individuals and community groups can do. And that's where the urban change making part comes in. Um, I am a firm believer that anybody within, a community or within the city can create positive change, given that they have the capacity and the resources to organize, to motivate and rally people, others, to create that change. And that change can come in many shapes or forms, but within an urban setting, it is definitely possible, and I've seen it work countless of times, that individuals and groups of individuals can work together to create positive change for their community. So that's what I like to see or define urban change making.
Okay, that's awesome. Now, if someone is listening to this conversation that we're having right now and they decide, wow, what Ryan is talking about is so interesting. I really want to do something in my community. I wonder if there's a way to get involved with Urban Minds or get involved with any other organization that he was mentioning, like the 880 initiative that you mentioned. Are there any thoughts that come to mind as to how a listener might get involved? Perhaps they're a youth, so is directly related to the kind of work that you're doing, or maybe they're in a different age bracket.
Well, a shameless plug here, of course. You can definitely visit our website, urbanminds.co, that's .co, to subscribe to our monthly newsletter. We regularly share opportunities for youth, mostly high school students, but sometimes also volunteer opportunities for university or college students to participate in. That could be opportunities through our One Up program or through the projects that we do with our clients. So that's one way to participate with us at Urban Minds. And we're always, looking for volunteers and looking for youth to attend our events. So that's one.
Yeah.
In a more broad or general sense, I would really encourage young people to stay up to date on the current affairs of city building. So I would say, our local media does a decent job in covering um, local municipal politics as well as the kinds of projects and development that's happening within the GTA. And of course, with these kinds of projects and development, there are always going to be public consultation events and processes where, relating it to back to my day job where the public would participate. So I know a lot of these public meetings or town hall meetings can be quite intimidating, especially for younger people to participate in. But I would say that things have gotten a little better with the shift to a virtual setting. Now you don't have to actually physically visit, your local community center to attend a public meeting. They're being held online. So you can, put on your jammies, have a sip of coffee while you join the meeting. And that's totally fine. And you get to hear what's going on with each specific site and offer your opinion or ask questions. That's another way to get involved. And of course, there are many other organizations in this region that are doing great work. And I would encourage you all to look for opportunities to volunteer, either, a one-off event or even in the long term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Perhaps even volunteer in a municipal councilor's office, or even get involved in one of the political campaigns for the election that's coming up in October.
Yeah, that's right. It is coming up, and it is going to be quite an interesting election to see, as there are quite a few open races for new blood to be injected into the new term of council.
Mm-hmm. Well, I could definitely go down that rabbit hole and start talking municipal politics, but we would leave that for an off-air discussion. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us on the Career Planning Show. Final thought, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah, so as I said, the best way to get in touch is probably through Urban Minds.
Okay.
So the website again is urbanminds.co. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn at Urban Minds TO. We post regularly there, and looking forward to meet some of you who are listening.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you for listening to the Career Planning Show. Visit rascanu.com, that's RASCANU.com, to subscribe to my free newsletter, find free events that you can attend in the Toronto area, and to connect with me, Alex Rascanu.